It began on an ordinary Tuesday evening, the kind that should have faded into routine memory. I'd just come home after an exhausting day at work, ready for the simple comfort of dinner and silence. But instead of the familiar calm, Claire met me with a faint, disdainful smirk and said, "I'm not your maid. Handle it yourself." For a moment, I stood still, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. After years of sharing responsibilities, of her cooking meals without complaint, of small gestures that once spoke of care, her words cut through the air with sharp indifference. It wasn't just what she said, but the deliberate tone, as if she wanted to provoke me. Annoyance simmered beneath the surface, but I held it down. Getting angry would only give her satisfaction. I realized quickly that if she was unwilling to be part of something as simple as preparing dinner, then I needed to remove her from that power altogether. I stayed quiet, collected my thoughts, and by the next morning, I had a plan. I called a professional chef, someone I'd met through a friend. Discreet, talented, dependable. That evening, the aroma of freshly cooked food filled the house before Claire even walked to the door. Every dish was beautifully arranged on the table, glistening under the warm light. When she entered, her confident smirk faltered. She had expected anger or pleading. Instead, she found calm and control. I greeted her casually and sat down to eat, not offering an explanation. Over the following days, the chef continued to prepare meals, each one more impressive than the last. Claire tried to regain her footing through sarcasm. She mocked the luxury, hinted that it was wasteful, even tried to laugh it off. I didn't respond. I ate peacefully, enjoying the food, never engaging in her petty attempts to provoke a reaction. My silence spoke louder than any argument could. Soon her tone shifted. The arrogance began to fade, replaced by unease. She started hovering around during meal times, offering half-hearted suggestions, pretending to help, but her timing was always off. Her presence no longer held power. It only highlighted how irrelevant her disapproval had become. I noticed every flicker of confusion in her eyes as she realized I wasn't playing her game anymore. By the second week, the sarcasm disappeared completely. She began asking gentle questions, tried to reinsert herself into my routine, but the control she once had was gone. I stayed consistent, calm, polite, but distant. The more steady I remained, the more unsettled she became. She tried to draw emotion from me, to see if I still cared enough to argue, but I didn't give her that satisfaction. Eventually, Claire's resistance turned into uncertainty. The tension that had once filled the house began to break. Not because of the fight, but because she had nothing left to fight against. She started seeking my attention in softer ways, her tone quieter, her expressions uncertain. It was clear she'd realized something crucial. Her sense of superiority no longer carried weight. By the end of the month, the transformation was complete. Gone was the arrogance in her eyes. The sharpness in her words had dulled. When she spoke, it was careful, cautious. She seemed to understand that the balance had shifted permanently. I never had to raise my voice, argue, or demand respect. I simply changed the rules by refusing to play her game. What began as a petty remark had turned into a quiet revelation. Control doesn't come from shouting or confrontation. It comes from calm, deliberate action. Claire had tried to belittle me, to assert dominance through mockery and withdrawal. Instead, she watched as I rebuilt the rhythm of our life without her influence. The chef kept coming. The meals stayed perfect, and the silence between us became her lesson. In the end, it wasn't about dinner at all. It was about reclaiming balance, self-respect, and peace. She had tested my patience. I had shown her restraint. And through that, she learned that real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply acts quietly and changes everything.